TalkinBoutBalls is back here on Tuesday, June the 25th. And we did have some news that dropped in the video game sphere, and that will turn into a talking point here today. But the main talking point so far is I am solo once again. My partner, Wayne, not here. But guess what? The show moves on. And it goes with college football EA 25 dropping. A pretty big bombshell, I guess, for us to talk about. So if you don't know, EA 25 is coming out July the 16th. Just, I believe now, 20 days from now, 21 days from now, less than 3 weeks, or about 3 weeks. This week is their ratings week. So in EA 25, they're going to have ratings week. They're going to have today, on Tuesday, was toughest places to play. The top 25 toughest places to play. We'll read them off for you here today. Then they're going to have the best offenses, the best defenses, and all that good stuff. So let's get into it. I'm going to give you the top 25 toughest places to play, and then I'm going to give you my top 10 toughest places to play in college football, as the college football season is just over, or about 2 months away. I think less than 2 months away now, because Florida State and Georgia Tech are going to get playing August the 24th. So let's get right into it. The top 25 toughest stadiums to play. 25, Davis Wade Stadium in Mississippi State. Boise State at 24. Arkansas 23, MSU 22, Notre Dame 21, Kinnick at Iowa at 20, Texas and DKR at number 19, 18 Utah, 17 Virginia Tech, 16 the Big House at Michigan, 15 South Carolina, 14 Auburn, 13 Tennessee, 12 Clemson, 11 Oregon. I'm going to get into my list, but the big thing I see so far on this list, as we get into the top 25, Husky Stadium in Washington is a loud building. It is definitely louder than Mississippi State and Boise State. I know Mississippi State's got their cowbells and whatnot, but Husky Stadium in Washington, the Huskies have been really good for a long time. They have the stadium configured to where the noise from the roof kind of radiates into the stadium. It makes it such a tough place to play. Texas should be higher than 19 or whatever they were at. Yeah, Texas at 19 should be higher than that. Michigan at 16, they should be higher. Virginia Tech at 17 should be higher. Jordan-Hare should be higher for Auburn. Neyland Stadium in Tennessee should be higher. Clemson should be higher. And here's the top 10. It's an interesting top 10 list. Number 10 is Doak Campbell, number 10, is Ben Griffin Stadium, the Swamp in Florida. Fine. Number 9 is Doak Campbell in Florida State with the Tomahawk Chomp. Tough place to play. Number 8 is Gaylord Family Memorial Stadium in Oklahoma. Another tough place to play. 7 is Camp Randall in Washington. Of course, jump around is going to be a pretty intimidating thing. 6 is Beaver Stadium at Penn State. 5 is Sanford Stadium at Georgia. 4 is Ohio Stadium at Ohio State. 3 is Tiger Stadium at LSU. 2 is Bryant-Denny at Alabama. And number 1 is Kyle Field, Texas A&M. The toughest place to play, according to EA College Football 25, is Kyle Field. What jumps off the bat early, the SEC's got the best stadiums. That's what jumps off the bat. Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU 1, 2, and 3. Georgia at number 5. I guess now Oklahoma at number 8. Florida at number 10. Tennessee up there. Auburn, South Carolina. But like over half the SEC's on this list, which is pretty special. Texas is on the list. Arkansas is on the list. Mississippi State's on the list. So many. South Carolina, so many SEC schools are on this list. I wanted to make a distinction right here. Bryant-Denny Stadium at number 2. They're not at my top 5 in my list. I'm going to tell you why. Listen, there's a difference between home field advantage and home team advantage. Home field advantage, your stadium is great, your atmosphere is great. That makes up for the team. home team advantage is your team is amazing no matter the atmosphere. That's what it is inside Bryant-Denny. Bryant-Denny's a great stadium. Like, don't get me wrong. Bryant-Denny, they rock the place all the time. It's in my top 10. It is a great stadium for Alabama. But I'm just saying, if they had a team not historically good, if they had a Wisconsin, a Penn State, Texas A&M type of team where they're kind of floating in the teens every year in the rankings, nobody would see this stadium as a top-notch stadium. It's the team that makes the stadium great, not the stadium that makes the players great. So that's the big thing I have with Alabama at number 2. And then Kyle Field at number 1. Look, it's a great stadium. It is an amazing stadium. It gets loud in that place. There's over 105,000 people there. It is a rockin' building ever since they made the renovations and the move to the SEC. It's a loud place. I understand that much. There's no way it's number 1. No way it's number 1. Maybe Texas A&M hasn't been on the top of their game the last couple of years, and we'll see if they're going to be a good team this year. There's no way Kyle Field is the most intimidating and toughest place to play in college football. It's just not. Same thing with Neyland Stadium at 13. Maybe recency bias because Neyland Stadium has been one of the epicenters of college football over the last couple of years with Tennessee and their prominence. That's a top 10 stadium in the country. That's a top 10 toughest place to play in the country. And having it ranked outside the top 10, below a stadium like Oregon, below Florida State, below Oklahoma, below Wisconsin, disgusting to see Neyland that low. So I've been making critiques. I've been getting at these ratings, guys. It's time for me to make my own list. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Top 10 toughest places to play in college football. Number 10 is Doak Campbell Stadium in Florida State. Big reason is that big old tomahawk chomp. When they get going in Florida State, my goodness, are they tough to beat when that tomahawk chomp is rumbling. It's the fourth quarter. It's a loud stadium to begin with. Florida State, one of my all-time favorite teams. They're a cool team with the tomahawk chomp. They've been good these last couple of years. Of course, the whole playoff debacle. I'm not going to get into that. But Florida State, great team, great stadium. It's at number 10. I think in the rankings it was at number 9. I'm fine with that. Not much of a discrepancy. Number 9 is Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn. Listen, I understand that the Tigers of Auburn have not been that good as of late. That's a overstatement. They've sucked as of late. They have not been a good football team. But when Auburn's good, when they were Bo Nix, when they had Peyton Thorne, no, not Peyton Thorne. When they were kind of in that era with Alabama, even post-Iron Bowl, not even Cam Newton era, post-Iron Bowl where they were still a top 10 team, Jordan-Hare rocks. Jordan-Hare at Auburn rocks. And I understand last couple of years haven't treated Auburn so well. Really, post-COVID hasn't treated Auburn so well. But when that place is going, it's still rocking. And it's a big reason why the last 2 times they've been in Jordan-Hare Stadium in the Iron Bowl. A couple years ago, 2 years ago, Alabama had to win in overtime, fourth overtime. It was 10-3. Alabama was losing because of that great Auburn crowd. And then this past year, Jalen Milroe having to have a miracle to Isaiah Bond to keep the win and to keep the playoff hopes alive. That's a big reason. When Alabama plays Auburn at home, it's a blowout. Auburn at home against Alabama, you got yourself a ball game, and that's what we've had over the last couple of years. So I think it is fair to put where they're putting Auburn at 13 to 14, just because of not much success in the past years. But when they're a semi-decent team, that place is so tough to play in. And you don't want to be there in late November, having to play if you're a top 5 team because they're going to bring the noise. Number 8 is their number 1, Kyle Field, Texas A&M. It's a notoriously tough place to play. I understand it as much. It is a tough place to play, and you are not looking forward to playing at Kyle Field at all. But to say it's the number 1 toughest place to play, as that is the end-all, be-all, it's Texas A&M. That is the team that, you don't want to play in Kyle Field. It's another one of those good stadiums. It is not special to me at all. It's in the category with LSU, Penn State, and Alabama and Georgia and Florida and these notoriously good crowds. Texas A&M, it's a good crowd. And at their best, they could be the best crowd. But I think on a given week-to-week basis, they're not close. They lost to Appalachian State at home. They lost to App State at home. If you have the number one crowd in the country, I don't care how bad your team is if you're Texas A&M, you should beat Appalachian State at home. These teams up on this list, they are not losing to group of 5 teams at home. May I say it again. So to put Texas A&M that high is a little bit surprising. I think 8 is fine. It's a great stadium. It's a great atmosphere. It's in the top 5 of the most people you can fit into a stadium in America, top 10 in the world. A great stadium. But the loss to App State at home as your 18-point favorites, I can't get over that. They have not been good at home this year. In the last couple years, they haven't been good anywhere, really, and I think you have to dock A&M for some of that. Let's move on to number 7. And it's Bryant-Denny Stadium in Alabama. And like I said, you can get confused with home field advantage and home team advantage. Alabama's got home team advantage to a T. They are great at home because the team is great. They're not great at home because the field and the crowd is great. It's a good enough crowd. But what you need to have for a great crowd, is to be on the edge. To have that passion in it, where you're talking about they've seen the hardships and whatnot. When you win the national title almost every year, there's no hardships to be had. There's no edge of your seat because Alabama's 9-0 and you're playing the 10th game against Ole Miss and they might lose. There's none of that with Alabama. They're just so good, and all credit to them. But there's no really on the edge of your seat, oh my goodness, this could go either way, intensity that there would be in other stadiums, just because Alabama's been the poster child of college football for so long. Let's break into the top 6. And another team that has struggled as of late, that is a blue blood of the sport, and it comes in my list at number 6, the Clemson Tigers in Death Valley, right? Or Death Valley. We all know it's really LSU is Death Valley. But Clemson's got a good claim to number 2 at Death Valley. And they come to number 6. Listen, they've struggled as of late. They've had some pretty bad collapses at home as of late. But at the same time, when this place is rocking, when the Clemson Tigers are good, which I think they'll be pretty enough solid next year, this is a top 5 stadium in the college football world. You don't get to get thrown around the name Death Valley. Death Valley. And we know LSU is the real Death Valley. And Clemson is kind of a poser. But they're a damn good poser. A damn good poser. That's why I have Clemson at number 6. Let's break into the top 5. And in the top 5, I have 4 SEC schools, 1 Big Ten school. Listen, the saying, nobody does it like the SEC, it's damn true when it comes to stadiums. Number 5, University of Georgia. Sanford Stadium, I think they have been amplified because of the recent success of the Georgia Bulldogs, back-to-back national champions, undefeated regular season this past year, lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game, but the back-to-back national champions, when the place is rocking, when the Bulldogs are good, when this team can rally, when this crowd can rally behind the team, it's great. I put it at number 5. It doesn't have the sheer numbers of other schools. All of these other schools are close to 100,000 people. Georgia's at 80,000. I don't care how loud you scream, there's a difference between 80,000 people and 100,000 people, and you're going to hear it. With that being said, let's get into number 4. The Swamp in Florida. Down there in Florida, in Gainesville, It is such a tough place to play. The Florida Gators have been so bad for so long. So to have this stadium be this high on the list, it just shows how tough it is to play in Florida. Tennessee this past year came into the swamp and got destroyed. They came into the swamp and got destroyed. We've seen countless time and again. Alabama went into the swamp and only won by 2 when they were huge favorites. Nobody wants to go and play in the swamp, especially under the lights in Gainesville, Florida. At any given weekend, it could be the biggest home field advantage in the world. The problem is Florida has been bad these last couple of years. And maybe Florida could get back. Graham Mertz is coming back, and they got a good squad there. Eugene Wilson III is back. But Florida, when they're at least half decent and they have a chance against the big dogs and that stadium can come out and show out, it's a scene like none other in college football. Before we get into the top 3, let me take a break. Top 3. At number 3, Neyland Stadium in Tennessee, in Knoxville, Tennessee, home of the Tennessee Volunteers. This place, the checkerboard scene, I think might be the best tradition in college football. Checkerboard Neyland in a big game is such a cool vibe. It's such a Southern feel stadium when this place gets packed out. I mean, you can take a peek here. Just look at that place. I mean, come on. Does that not just scream amazing vibes and fans screaming on the top of their lungs? Checkerboard Neyland. When they bring out the checkered board, you know it's serious. I think they're so high for me because of beating Alabama when Tennessee was ranked 6th. Alabama was ranked 3. Beating them in that classic of a game. That same year, beating Florida when Florida had Anthony Richardson and a good Florida squad. It's a tough, tough place to play. It embodies what the SEC should be. The checkered boards are coming out. The stripe game, it's everything. The reason why it's not high, checkered board's great, but on a random Saturday when they're playing Arkansas, I don't know if it finds its way into a top 5 stadium in the world. That's the problem. Same thing could be said with number 2, Penn State. Beaver Stadium. The whiteout is the single most hostile environment in the college football season. But the problem is, and I've been to plenty Penn State games, the noon games, the 3:30 games, they just don't have the intensity that they should be, and it doesn't feel like the opposing team is that rattled. Even during the whiteout, they have a losing record in the whiteout because they schedule the best teams. The teams that have came in, Michigan this past year, they got the doors kicked in by Michigan. They lost to Ohio State. The last time they were really able to beat a good team at home when they beat number 16 Michigan in the whiteout a couple of years ago. The last time they were really able to beat a big team. They're not able to get over the hump of Michigan and Ohio State, even when at home. But the whiteout being the most hostile environment you're going to get any year in college football anywhere, that's why I throw it at number 2. At number 1, toughest place to play. I don't think it's close. It's LSU. It's Death Valley. Especially on a Saturday night when that band plays neck and they go nuts. And the success the LSU Tigers have had, and the culture, I think it's the most cultured college football team down in the bayou. I mean, eating the crawfish and eating the fried gator, going to an LSU game, that is a dream of mine. I just love LSU and the scene down there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, down in bayou. That's number 1. Teams I left out. No Oklahoma, no Wisconsin, no Ohio State, no Michigan, no Oregon, no Virginia Tech. I leave some of those guys out. Not saying they're not great stadiums, but the thing is, He can only pick 10, and there's over 130 stadiums in college football. So to go over the list, Florida State at 10, Auburn at 9, A&M 8, Alabama 7, Clemson 6, Georgia 5, Florida 4, Texas 3, Penn State 2, LSU 1. Top 10 toughest places to play in the sport. If you got any problems with the list, let me know. I don't think it's too crazy of a list. Alrighty. Let's keep it moving. And tomorrow's the NBA draft. And we've had some news coming out that Alex Sarr, projected number 1 overall pick, is not projected number 1 anymore. Zachary Rishurker is projected number 1. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Listen, I don't care about the NBA draft, and it's wild because I used to care about basically every event. This draft is so awful that you couldn't pay me to care about this shit. I just don't care. The most intriguing thing is what happens with Bronny James. And free agency starts Sunday in the NBA. So we're going to talk about some of our free agency picks as free agency gets going. And if you talk about balls on TikTok, I already went over it, but I doubt you watched. So let's bring in our top 15 free agent picks. Let's start off with Paul George of the LA Clippers. And his time with LA has been summed up in one word: disappointment. It's been very, very disappointing for Paul George in LA. Just how it's been. I mean, they've been a team that I've said could be a championship contender for so long, and they haven't been. Okay? They've gotten to a big moment, haven't done much. I think Paul George will stay with the Clippers. There were rumors that he could go to the Sixers. I don't see it. Here's the big one, LeBron James. And if you would have asked me last week, where's LeBron going, I'd probably say, I don't know, not the Lakers. J.J. Redick as a hiring, best buds with his good pal, Mickey James. I think that is enough for the King to stay in L.A. I think he's able to stay with the Lakers. Some other free agents, OG Anunoby's got a player option. I think he accepts it and stays with the Knicks. I mean, they've been so good with him. DeMar DeRozan is a big free agent, unrestricted free agent. I think the Sixers are looking at Paul George. They're not going to get Paul George, and they're going to settle for a Walmart Paul George, DeMar DeRozan. I think that's a good pickup for the Sixers. Does it take them to the edge to be a championship team? Probably not, but that's still a good enough pickup for the Philadelphia 76ers. So that's my quick fire NBA thoughts. So the NFL. The NFL is getting ready to go again, right? The NFL is still dead. It's still dead, but it's less dead than before, okay? A couple weeks ago, it was dead as a doorknob. Now it's dead as a less dead doorknob. So I want to bring up a team that everybody says is going to go 0-17 or close to it. The Carolina Panthers. 0-17 feels like the prediction for basically everybody. Do I think they'll be the worst team this year? No. I'm a big Bryce Young guy. I think Bryce Young's going to have a good enough career. And, of course, C.J. Stroud is good. I think if C.J. Stroud was less good, the perception on Bryce Young would be a lot higher. But that's not the way things work. C.J. Stroud has been, the best rookie quarterback I could ever remember. And Bryce Young has not been. Has not been close to that. But I think Carolina inflicted this on themselves with the Bryce Young. Okay? You have a rough start to the season. Okay? You have a rough start. Okay? Instead of staying calm with a rookie quarterback who could be rattled, they hire Frank Reich. They bring in an interim head coach. And now they hire a new coach. Bryce Young has had 3 coaches in a year and a half. You can't do that to a young rookie quarterback and expect him to succeed. His offensive line sucks. There's no playmakers. They're finally going to have a pick next year. But they've given away 2 first-round picks. They have no future. Okay? So, you don't want to make it seem like it's an insecurity in Carolina. If you look at the rookie QBs that have succeeded early in their careers, Dak Prescott, he had the same coach for 7 years. Patrick Mahomes has had the same coach since his rookie year. So it is about security with a young rookie quarterback to help him succeed, to help him get confidence. He already has a dog shit organization in Carolina, right? With an owner that sucks, with an offensive line that sucks, no weapons on the receiving end. Let's just throw out and make it 3 coaches in 2 years for Bryce Young. And hopefully now Dave Canales could help, but I don't think he's going to. They didn't even get a big fish coach. So something has to change in Carolina because the division is open. The division's wide open, and it's not going to be that way for a long time. Somebody's going to establish themselves as the team to beat in the division. I don't know who it is, but somebody's going to do it. Okay? In Carolina, you got a rookie QB. Or a second-year QB. You got the number 1 overall pick in the draft. That should be you establishing it. That should be you taking the division. What do? Oh, yeah, we got Jonathan Brooks. We got Xavier Legette. Oh, yeah, and we got Deontay Johnson. We're going to be ready to win 3 games this year. You don't want to waste the talent of Bryce Young, and I do think Bryce Young is a very talented quarterback. Not as talented as his counterpart, C.J. Stroud, but the guy is very, very, very talented. So throwing away all of that, just getting a new coach after 11 games, and that wasn't like the sky was falling in Carolina. Sure, they were bad, 1-10, okay? But it's a rookie quarterback. If we look at the rookies now, I only see one rookie quarterback that's in a position to succeed, Caleb Williams, right? Maybe J.J. McCarthy, but that's a stretch. Drake May, I think, is going to do awful in his rookie year, and I'm not saying I don't like Drake May. I think he was my second QB on the board, maybe even QB1 on some days. I think Jane Daniels is going to struggle. You just can't come into the league as a rookie and be successful. So it is okay if you go 1-10 as a rookie quarterback. And it's not like Frank Reich took over the Carolina job expecting to win 9 games. They expected to win about 4. They won about 1, and he gets fired. And Bryce Young has shown flashes. He's in the Green Bay Packer game in the regular season where they lost 33-30 in OT. He made some great plays. But you just can't set up a rookie QB. It is the absolute recipe for disaster, recipe for it not to work, is setting up a rookie QB with a carousel of coaches, with an awful offensive line, with nobody who has confidence in him, with not a running back that he can hand the ball off to and be comfortable with no receiving weapons, and not an amazing defense, and an owner that sucks. So I like Bryce Young. I think he can turn it around. Okay? Are the Panthers going to win enough games this year? No. They're not going to win enough games. They should have a high pick coming up, and maybe they can try to get something. But right now, it looks really, 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 really bad for the Carolina Panthers. But, hey, we never know until we play the games, right? We never know until we play the games, and that's what we're going to find out. Speaking of quarterbacks coming into their rookie year, Minnesota has got J.J. McCarthy, and the Raves are pretty darn impressive on what we're hearing about J.J. McCarthy. And I like the Minnesota Vikings. I know it's great to like the Vikings, but if it's not Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy is set up the most for success. And doesn't matter how much you like J.J. McCarthy or dislike J.J. McCarthy, he's got Justin Jefferson to throw him the ball. He's got Jordan Addison to throw him the ball. T.J. Hawkinson to throw him the ball. Aaron Jones to hand the ball off. Ty Chandler, a good offensive line, a great coordinator. And for Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell in his career in Minnesota, plus or even on the turnover battle, 17-0. -1 or more in the turnover battle, 3-14. They need a QB that's not going to turn the ball over. That is the biggest thing. They need a team that's not going to fumble the ball. If Minnesota can be in the top half of the turnover battle this year, they can win games and they can make the playoffs. We're acting like, Minnesota has taken a huge step back. They went 7-10, and they only had Kirk Cousins for 7 games, right? So with J.J. McCarthy, it's something different, okay? Is there a 20% chance he's going to be an absolute bust? Yes, okay? But that's better than what we had with Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins was 100% mid, okay? And that's fine. You're going to win 10 games with him. You're going to lose in the first round of the playoffs. Instead, with J.J. McCarthy, you might go 3-14, or you might win the Super Bowl. And I would rather be 3-14 with a chance of winning the Super Bowl than 10-7 with no chance of winning the Super Bowl. So I think he's set up for so much success. He's got Justin Jefferson throwing the ball. Justin Jefferson's the second best player in the league right now, behind Patrick Mahomes. Best receiver in the National Football League. I mean, there's no question there's going to be learning problems with Minnesota, and it's going to be Sam Darnold in week 1 and maybe the rest of the season. And I sure as hell hope it's Sam Darnold the rest of the year. That means he's playing good enough. But I also know Kevin O'Connell, in his coaching career, he's going to have a short leash on these QBs. He has went from Josh Dobbs to Nick Mullins to Jaron Hall to all of these guys quickly if they don't play good enough. And I think that's what's going to happen with Sam Darnold. It was a necessary evil getting rid of Kirk Cousins. It just was. He was never going to win you a Super Bowl. He was never really going to get you close. And I think that's a good enough move for Minnesota. Now let's talk about a good team. A team that actually is worth talking about and could actually contend and win a Super Bowl. The San Francisco 49ers. Brandon Ayuk has been in an interesting kind of debate with this. Brandon Ayuk's meeting with the 49ers, and so far they have not been able to reach anything or get anything close. On what Brandon Ayuk thinks, he's probably a top 15, 12 receiver in the league, maybe even top 10. Is he the best receiver on the 49ers? Yes. Is he the most valuable receiver to the 49ers? No. Just what Deebo Samuel does all over the field is much more valuable than the one-trick pony that Brandon Ayuk is. San Francisco, this is the last thing they need. And I'm going to take a look at the big picture. The 49ers, if we go back to 2019, when they made the Super Bowl, okay, they're a young team. They made the Super Bowl. Okay, they lost. Oh, it's too early, all right? Everybody's great. Nobody wants to leave. The same team's intact, blah, blah, blah. You keep doing that cycle for a couple of years. You bring in Brock Purdy. It was kind of a disgruntled San Francisco. They brought in CMC. They had a losing record through 7 games a couple of years ago. It's a disgruntled team. There's something new. You bring in McCaffrey. You bring in Brock Purdy, and they get back and go to the Super Bowl. It's different when you lose the Super Bowl 4 or 5 years ago than when you lose it now, when you have been against Kansas City twice and you've been to the playoffs a long, long time. Okay? It's kind of like, man, we got next year, right? When next year's happened for 4 years and nothing's happened in the next year, you get disgruntled and you see kind of a falling apart process. And I look at this, if you're in the NFC, it's San Francisco, it's Detroit down here. San Francisco's that much ahead in terms of the roster. I understand the Lions led them by 17 in the NFC title game. But still, San Francisco is that much better. San Francisco is the best team in the NFL, roster-wise. I know Kansas City beat them. They're still a better team all around. So if you're in the NFC, you look at this unstoppable giant has now got a little bit of turmoil. Publicized turmoil. Who knows what's going on inside down there in Santa Clara, California? This is the last thing San Francisco has because it kind of feels like you're lying to the players. You lose the Super Bowl to the Chiefs in 2019. Hey, man, we can do it next year. Hey, we got it. You keep losing in the championship, in the divisional, in the Super Bowl. How many times can you tell guys, hey, next year, man, next year's our year? You know, it just doesn't happen. They call your bluff, right? The 49ers, let's call it how it is. They're a Gucci Dallas Cowboys. They just get a little bit farther than the Cowboys. Both teams are the same. Hyped up in the regular season, good enough squad, a lot of attention on them. Suffer in the playoffs. The problem is, the difference is the Cowboys do it in the first round, the Niners do it second and third or the Super Bowl. The Niners are stuck because they kind of feel like the Boston Celtics. The difference was Boston couldn't get over the hump. What did they do? They acquired Porzingis. They acquired Drew Holiday. The Niners roster is so good. Who would you want to acquire? The Niners are better than the Celtics in their respective sports because the Niners really have no holes. Maybe another defensive lineman, maybe some secondary help on the corner if you want to go get an elite corner, maybe. But besides from that, they have an amazing squad. Okay? They have Ricky Pearsall now, who's going to play as wide receiver 3 or 4. That's a backup plan for Brandon Ayuk. They want to get Brandon Ayuk a deal, but they're also not going to sell their soul to get Brandon Ayuk a deal, if it makes any sense. So, I think San Francisco, this is the absolute last thing they need, is some type of turmoil when they're this close, that close to winning a Super Bowl. When they went to overtime to win a Super Bowl. When they only lost by 3 points. You should have no turmoil. Problem is, they would have none of this turmoil if this was the first time this happened. Losing to the Rams in the NFC Championship game. Losing to the Chiefs twice. Losing to all of these teams has created an uptick in intensity and animosity that we see the turmoil happening. If I'm Brandon Ayuk, you ask for big money, of course. But where else are you going to go? Right? The Niners are not trading you to a contender. They're going to trade you to an AFC team that's not a contender. The Steelers is a good one. I don't know if they would trade him to Buffalo, just because Buffalo would look dangerous then. The price would probably be a first-round pick, and San Francisco would be set up well. But I don't think the Niners care really too much right now about first-round picks. They want to win now, and it's a counterintuitive move to trade away a player for future when you need now. You want to trade away future for now, not now for future. It's a tough spot for San Francisco. We'll see how they figure it out. Final segment here on Talking About Balls as we approach the 40-minute mark. Hopefully next week I'll have my partner back and he can blabber on a little bit. We can get these episodes up over an hour like we want to. Final segment. Usually in the NFL there are 8 teams that missed the playoffs a year ago and make it now. I have 8 teams that could miss the playoffs a year ago and make it now. Not saying all of these guys will, but let's go. First off is the Atlanta Falcons. They're an odds-on favorite to make the playoffs. The division's weak. Kirk Cousins is in town. They should be a 10-11 win team. That's easy. Next is the Chicago Bears. I have the Bears as a potential playoff team this year. Down the stretch, they were honestly one of the best teams in the league. Right? They went from having the second pick to about the 9th, 10th pick. They got good down the stretch. They got hot. Justin Fields played great. Of course, he's not on the team, but Caleb Williams is set up amazingly. DeAndre Swift in the backfield. DJ Moore catching passes. Rome Odunze catching passes. Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet. There's so many great weapons for Caleb Williams to step into this system that I think the Chicago Bears could be in line for the playoffs. These next 5 teams are from the AFC in an ultra-competitive conference that there are, I would say, at least 12 to 13 playoff teams in the AFC out of 16 teams. It's the conference is that deep that, I mean, the only teams I couldn't see making the playoffs are New England I couldn't see, Denver I couldn't see, the Raiders I can't see making the playoffs. Besides from that, I mean, there's not much, if anything, standing in the AFC's way right now of making the playoffs. Maybe Tennessee, but I could see the Titans making the playoffs. So, first off in the AFC is the Jets. The Jets were so underrated last year just because of no Aaron Rodgers. They were still a solid enough team. Problem was, no Aaron Rodgers. So, getting Rodgers back, getting Mike Williams, getting Hassan Reddick, getting Tyron Smith, getting all of these great players that they acquired, they should be a top contender team. I think they're going to win the AFC East. I'm so high on the Jets. They were my Super Bowl pick a year ago, and then Aaron Rodgers got hurt, so I don't really give a hell. Oh, shit. So let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Colts, again, that's a team that I don't want to get too high on them, but they could be a 1 seed. They could be a 1 seed just because I think Anthony Richardson can take a jump, kind of like a Patrick Mahomes level jump. Next, the Jacksonville Jaguars. People forget they were 8-3. The Jags were 8-3 in week number 12. They fell apart and went 8-9 to finish the year, yeah. But they were still the number 1 seed in the AFC in the latter half of the year. The Jags will be back. The problem is they lose Calvin Ridley. Who do they replace him with? Gabe Davis. Ugh. Final 2 teams. First is the Chargers. 2 words, Jim Harbaugh. I mean, everywhere he goes, he wins. So that seems pretty clear to me. And then the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals would have been a Super Bowl contender this past year. People forget, hey, they walked into San Francisco and blew the doors off the 49ers. Of course, Burrow got hot and ruined their momentum, and Burrow's kind of an injury-prone guy, but if he's not, I think the Bengals can make a run. That'll do it for this episode of Talking About Balls. Join us next week as we get more into the NFL stuff, and hopefully I'm not riding solo anymore.